Did you guys enjoy the last video with Dr. Leo? We got into the first hive after our winter here in the Midwest, and we're coming into spring, so we're doing all of our hive inspections. We opened up our first hive. If you missed everything that happened in that first video, make sure you backtrack. We had to split this up into 2 videos because the amount of information when Dr. Leo comes up is just overwhelming. So I had to break this video up into 2 so you guys could retain it all. So welcome back to part 2, and if you missed the first one, make sure you go back so you can see what happened with the first hive that we put out there. Plus, Dr. Leo brought us a surprise. So if you missed that, you want to see that, okay? I promise. So today what we're going to do is I'm picking up where we left off. We're going to be walking over to the 2 hives out in the pasture, and we're going to do the hive inspection, see how they fared over winter. There's another hive over there that we used a pillow with, and that's kind of cool, so we'll check that out. Dr. Leo has more surprises in store, so don't go anywhere. And if you're new around here, my wife and I, we live in this log cabin. We built it ourselves about a decade ago. We live 100% off-grid, 100% off rainwater. We don't have any public utilities here. We have a composting toilet. We grow most of our own food in the 90 percentile. We do preservation. We basically are living like the pioneers, but in the 21st century. And we post all this information on YouTube and Facebook, all social media, for free for you guys. So it's to help you become more self-sufficient, right? To get you out of the stores and to get you back to the earth and back outside and back to, taking care of yourself and stop co-opting your life out. All right, no more soapbox. But that's what we're all about here, so we really enjoy what we're doing. We're actually building Mom a log cabin right now because we're moving her up out of the city and into the country life. So if you're interested in any of that kind of stuff, you definitely want to hit that subscribe button. It's a great channel, great information, great community, and I know you want to be a part of it. So we're going to go out to the pasture right now. Dr. Leo and I, we're going to open up the first hive, and then we're going to do something cool with the horizontal hive you've maybe never seen before. So let's go get it done. So I moved the sheep for you. I didn't think competing with Rainbow over here would be a good idea. So I put the sheep on the other side. Stormin' Norman! So we'll move these cattle panels real quick and then we'll open her up. Good. So can you remember the last time you were here, if you've ever been here and we had cattle panels around the bees?
No.
Yeah. Because I keep these bees inside of these pastures here. And I've never had a problem with the sheep bothering the bees until Elsa came along. And Elsa is one of our ewes that we kept, was a bottle feeder ewe, and for some reason she took a big fancy to rubbing on this beehive, like bad rubbing on it. I'm going to show you guys what I mean. Yeah, the bees are coming in and out of there, aren't they?
They do. This is a very good strong hive.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing it in a different position from where it was in the fall when I visited the last time. So I guess there is more to that story of the sheep rubbing on it.
Oh man. All right, let me get this over here. That beehive is really active, but we're going to get into this one first, see what's going on in here, if there's any activity. I mean, we can obviously see there's zero activity out here. And now we're going to open this up and see maybe what was the problem here.
Doug, you are just proving all my theories. I keep, telling people that normally this narrow and deep frame like we have in these hives leads to better colony survival in the winter.
Yeah.
And you had this brutal winter and the 2 hives close by with all the same conditions.
No, this is much worse conditions. Because the sheep was going in underneath here and rubbing her back on it and knocking it over. This horizontal beehive, no kidding y'all, has been on the ground 3 times this winter.
Oh my.
First time she did it, I was like, she'll never do that again. She did it again. Then I put the T-post behind there. I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. The T-posts are actually bent. She actually went in there and bent it backwards and knocked it over for a 3rd time. So this beehive, no fooling, and you can tell it looks kind of shuffled, but it has been knocked over in the winter 3 times. So
yeah, but
very interesting.
It is.
So why do I want to switch?
Yeah.
It's a $1 million question.
Yeah. Well, you know, ultimately it shows that the kind of the box you put the bees in is not as important as the bees themselves.
Right.
Another thing that it shows that if you want to draw any conclusions, you need to have a number of years of observation and a substantial number of hives.
Right.
It's all too easy to have 2 models of the hive, and this one survives and this one does not, and to think, oh, this one is much better for my bees. But I would encourage you to wait a few years and compare, and then to base your judgment not just on something that happened to 2 hives over 1 winter, but over the period of time.
Now I know that some of you guys were talking and asking questions about this hive and the ventilation, because as you can see on this, the horizontal hive, the way the roof peaks, we're able to sneak a little ventilation in there. But the same as here, we have ventilation on this here. Inside you can see the holes, and there's screens on there, so there's holes and ventilation on these lids as well. I just wanted to make sure I answered that question, because I got that a couple times in the last video. One thing we like to do is read through the questions and answer them for you guys. And there's actually even a little piece in the bottom of this here, actually I'd never even noticed it before, that provides a little ventilation as well.
Yeah, ventilation is not an issue. When you open it and you see that everything is clean and there is no mold, you know that there was not too much moisture in the hive.
Plus we can see there's zero bees
zero
anywhere.
activity. So the only thing we can do is to try to understand why this happened. You see some bees at the bottom of the hive.
Yes, at least there's bees in this one.
Yeah. The frames are heavy. They have you know, pounds and pounds of honey on each frame. This is probably 5 pounds of honey on this one. This one is even heavier than that. Another 5-6 pounds of honey. 4 pounds. All right, and now we know what exactly happened. So here's the queen in the center of the cluster of dead bees, and there are 2 things you notice. Where the bees are, there is no more food. The food are 2 inches from them literally, but they ran out of food here, and the size of the cluster is really minuscule. A good-sized colony is going into winter with anywhere between 8 and 10 inches diameter cluster of the bees on each of the central frames. So this colony was so weak that they couldn't generate enough heat to properly move towards the winter reserves and consume honey. One conclusion we can draw here is you need to be striving to go into the winter with strong colonies that have so many bees covering each frame that they generate enough heat to stay active and move on the frame to access honey, which means that as a beginning beekeeper, you want to do the best thing for the bees, and you want to leave them as much honey as they need for the winter so they don't starve. But if the colony is very small, leaving too much honey is actually worse than leaving little, because they will not be able to heat all of that volume that you are giving them.
So even if we took out frames that maybe didn't have enough on it and just left them with the whole packed frames, do you think still they might not have made it because the cluster wasn't enough to keep the temperature high?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is when the chicks hatch very early in the spring. You need to protect them and heat them, because an adult chicken can, you know, walk on the snow, no problem, but the small chick will freeze to death at the same temperature. The same with the bees. What happened here is that the cluster of the bees was just too small to be viable. If you see so few bees in a hive in the fall, it's practically doomed. What you can do, you can combine some of them together, like 2 or even 3 together, and then they will have a collectively much better chance of surviving than individual weak colonies on their own.
Right.
So it's a good lesson. So we'll be keeping eye this season on the strength of the colonies, so that not only during the spring and the summer when they're collecting honey they're strong, but during the fall and preparation in the winter they stay strong. And by the way, one of the ways to achieve this is this. See this frame, very heavy with honey. When frames become all filled with honey, the queen has less space to lay eggs in. So a hive that can be very, very strong in the summer may all of a sudden become very weak in the fall,
right,
because they filled everything with honey. Like in this hive,
right,
and the queen was nowhere, you know, to lay eggs.
Yeah.
And because of that, the older generation of the bees died off,
right,
and the younger was not born. So to go around that potential problem is, if you see there is a lot of activity in the summer and very, very strong honey flow, you need to be adding additional frames in front of the active entrance to prevent all of the frames becoming filled with honey.
Right.
And it's called honey bound.
Right.
So just go there, you know, at least once a month. If you see that it's all being filled with honey like that, like
yep,
7 pounds of honey on the frame, you need to put additional frames for the queen to continue laying.
Right.
But you have a lot of good honey in this box.
Yeah, and the thing that you know is that bees actually make winter bees. As they roll into the fall, she'll produce bees that are a little meatier, a little fattier. They have better body fat, and that'll help them get through the winter as well. So if she wasn't able to lay those eggs properly, that's what happens too. The hive will just get squeezed out because the bees aren't thick enough to handle the winter, especially the one we just had.
Yeah. So for this summer, you'll catch a swarm,
yep,
put them here,
yep,
and just keep an eye on them and be always ahead of them.
Right. So
add them more space before they completely run out of the room.
So I'll keep these frames, then I won't extract them. I'll just kind of hold on to them, put them somewhere good, or?
You actually can and should extract it and enjoy this delicious honey.
Yeah, I was thinking about the swarm would eat it.
The swarm won't need as much honey.
Because it'll be in the flow, everything will
exactly.
be going. Yeah, makes sense.
They will go and get it from the flowers. And what they will need, though, if you can save some of the empty comb and give it back to them, the queen will be able to go straight to laying instead of waiting until the colony builds enough comb.
Right.
So all of this old comb is very useful, and you decide at what point what is more important, to give bees more food. It's always a good idea to keep like one frame as a reserve for each colony. For example, if you catch a swarm and then there is rainy or cold weather and they cannot get it from the flowers, you just give them a frame of honey and they survive this cold spell.
Right.
And they're giving more than what they really need in case of inclement weather is not necessary, because they're able to get it from the flowers.
And then all you're doing is inviting chance for more bromites or any kind of
No, not so much bromites, but wax moths and their
love the
small
comb.
Yeah, not just they love the comb, they like the comb that's very dark in color.
Right.
The one that has bee bread, like all of this so right here you see 2 delicious sources of protein that small hive beetles and wax moths love. This is fermented pollen that bees get from the flowers and use for feeding their larvae and consume themselves. And these black scales is the cocoons of the bees that lived in the cells when they were going from a pupa into an adult bee. They spin a cocoon like all insects do, and this cocoon is protein too. So if you leave in the hive too many frames with protein in them, it gives chance to wax moth and small hive beetles proliferate, because they can lay eggs, and then the larva will have a rich source of protein to feed themselves on.
Right. And everybody loves that protein. That's good stuff right there.
It is.
Guess we'll just go ahead and get this one out of here, because when I do catch a swarm, I'm going to actually put this one into the woods. I'm going to actually try to get my apiary over in the woods and out of these pastures, because
away from the sheep.
yeah, I've never had a problem before, but I don't want to have any more problems in the future, you know. So this is a good spot. It gets a lot of good sun, but it has a lot of drawbacks. We've tried it here for several years, and now with those guys bothering them and everything, I think we're going to move them over there as fast as we can. So we're going to get rid of this one here. I think we're going to transfer this one, the horizontal hive, into a hive like this. So we're going to show you guys how you can do that, and that's what we're going to do right now.
All right.
Yeah, and we got a little bit of a jam up back here.
Well, yeah, I can see what you're trying to do with these T-posts.
Yeah, they were actually up against the beehive, and I had them roped off on there, but when she pushed it, it just bent them right over. Yeah, so we got to take these out.
Yeah, one option though is if you ever were to build a hive where the legs are attached to the hive, to spread them like that at 45 degrees so they have a lot of footprint.
Right.
It makes mowing around it more difficult. You have to go around the legs.
Right.
But of course it would be much more stable.
Right. In case you weren't understanding what he means, see how these legs are going straight down? What he's saying is when you put your legs on, have them kick out this way and kick out that way a little bit. And that'll give that a much more stable foundation. This isn't bad, but even with the T-post, it still could get knocked over.
I remember when it was even knocked over by the wind.
Yeah, that happened even before.
Yeah. Okay, and I will start removing the hinges here. The hinges are damaged, so in order to lift the lid, we need to take it off. All right, we'll do a quick inspection, see how the colony is doing inside, and then we'll transfer them into the lay-ins horizontal box, the one with narrow and deep frames that I'm using. So if you watched the previous videos, you know that the lay-ins frames have the top bars that touch, and the American standard frames called Langstroth have cracks between the top bars. This is for the vertical hives, for the bees to go up, up, up from one box to the other. So for this reason, on horizontal Langstroth hives, there is an additional layer of cover boards, not to disturb the bees when we are opening the box. Free plans for building a hive like that are on horizontalhive.com. If you already have a vertical Langstroth hive and want it to be easier on your back, then you can download it, and it's directly compatible with the equipment you may already have.
Right. And if you want to change it to what we're talking about, we're actually going to show you how to walk through that process too. So if you have vertical hives and you want to switch to these hives, it's basically the same process.
Yeah, nice, clean. Regarding the trays, I either put oil, any mineral oil or vegetable oil in these trays, or it needs to have diatomaceous earth like there, but in a good layer throughout the tray. Because if any portion of the tray becomes filled with the waste from the hive, and there is no oil or diatomaceous earth, so these are small bits of beeswax that the bees are using in frame construction, and they drop a few and they fall through the screen. So if you don't have any oil or diatomaceous earth here, what you have is wax moths.
They come in to feed on it.
Yeah, and they start breeding in there.
Right.
So again, if you use a hive with a screen bottom board, which is this one, and these trays, which is a good thing to have, especially in humid southern climates where there are a lot of small hive eels. Make sure that it is always filled with either oil or diatomaceous earth.
Right. And on my defense, I wanted these to be totally how they were when he got here. I didn't want to open them up. That got knocked over a couple of times. So the diatomaceous earth is all over the place.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to open it up and put any more in there. When he got here, I wanted him to see, and you all to see, fresh out of winter. So that's what we got.
Yeah. All right, the first inspection of the spring. And with these, just as with the top bars in the Lane's hive, I can put the palm of my hand, and yeah, I can feel it's really, really warm. Not because I put my smoker here, but even the ones that away from the smoker, the tops are really warm, so I know they're raising a lot of brood. The reason it's warm when they're raising brood, we call it brood just because they brood on it like chickens do to maintain good temperature for incubation. And they're 95 degrees or so. Doug, I applaud you for leaving enough honey for the bees to live the winter on their own reserves. Today it's all too common for beekeepers to take all of that honey for their own uses in the fall and give bees sugar water in the fall to serve as their winter food, which is not providing them with adequate nutrition, and then you have a high chance of all kinds of health problems for the bees because you're depriving them of the micronutrients and other things that are present in honey but not present in sugar water. So what Doug is doing right with all of the hives, he's leaving plenty of honey in the hive, so you never have to give their bees sugar water. So when people tell you, oh, you always need to feed the bees in the fall, well, that's because you took all of their honey. Of course you have to. If you use moderation and you take the real surplus that they do not need themselves and leave them enough to survive the winter on their own reserves, they will be much better nourished than if you replaced it with sugar syrup. So when we are transferring it from one hive model to the other, we only have to transfer the brood comb. All of that honeycomb that has no larvae, no eggs, can be removed, uncapped, extracted, and they're either used in another equipment using the same size of frames or given to another beekeeper who is using Langstroth frames. All right. Alright, plenty of bees, good. You know, when I was little, I always wondered, what are the beekeepers looking at? They would take out the frame and just stare at the frame. Well, what I'm looking at now is I'm making sure that there are no tiny eggs. They look like tiny grains of rice. There is no larva or there is no capped brood that looks like sandpaper cappings on the frame, because if I'm only transferring the frames with their brood, I need to make sure I'm not wasting any of the brood that may be hidden between honey on the other frames. To make it easier for me though, bees like to put brood in one area of the hive. It makes it easier for them to heat it and maintain it. So we have honey, 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 and then there will be brood, which also makes horizontal hives very convenient to work with, because when you need to put more frames for honey storage, you put it in the honey section. If you need to put more frames for the queen to lay eggs in, you put it straight into the brood section without having to take off heavy boxes called supers on the vertical hives. So you have access to all frames at once. The illustration of what I love about the lay-ins frames, they have the top bars that touch like that. In the absence of these, see how much connecting comb the bees build? They want to connect these two because of the gap between the top bars. So when you have tow bars like that, you won't have all of this random comb construction connecting the frames together, which makes working with these frames in a horizontal lay-ends hive much more convenient and quick than in a horizontal Langstroth. Another frame of honey. No brood on this one. But there are lots of bees, which is a very good sign. This colony is off to a very good start. So I look real closely to see whether there are any eggs, because brood is conspicuous, but the eggs are sometimes difficult to see. So if you're examining a frame for eggs, look first in the dark cells, because the egg is white, so it's easy to see it in the bottom of a dark cell because it's contrasting against the dark background. So when I first look at the frame to see whether there might be eggs, I look in these cells and not here. If I'm not finding here any eggs, I will quickly glance on these, but this frame has no brood on this side. And again, here I'm looking at the darker cells first, and I'm not seeing any eggs or larvae or capped brood on this frame either, which makes the transfer easy for us. Last year, if you watch a previous video when we were transferring one of the hives into the lay-ends horizontal hive, transferring frames this size, cutting them and putting them into frames this side, we were doing it when the hive was very active. We had to do a lot of cutting, there were a lot of bees, a lot of disturbance. So now it's early April, and now is the great time to do it, because as you can tell, we went through half of the frames and we are not seeing brood yet. That means that the number of frames we'll need to cut to put them from one hive model into the other will be minimal. And the number of bees that are there now at the beginning of April are probably 3 times fewer than you will have in the same box 8 weeks later.
Right. Because they start hatching and growing fast.
Yeah, once nectar is available.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's fascinating how in beekeeping we are many times thinking about beekeeping as boxes filled with calm and this delicious honey and bees, but this is more like a fingerprint of what's happening around in the environment.
Right.
And it reacts to everything, almost like an internet. Something happens there, it's reflected here. It's like a network, an organism that has all of these tentacles that spread miles around, moving and searching for food and bringing it into this organism for
and all the while taking into account weather, barometric pressure, moisture, all these other things. It's awesome. Bees have a good pulse on life.
Oh yeah, you know, now that we're discovering more and more about how they know all of these things.
Right.
It's fascinating, and I talked to one of the leading bee scientists in the world, Tom Seeley from Cornell University, and he said that with everything we know about honeybees, and this is a huge amount of information, we're just scratching the surface. And this was surprising to hear it from someone who did 30 plus years, maybe 40 plus years of research.
Right.
All right. So the brood frame with capped brood here. And larva there. And tiny larva there at the bottom of the cells that you can see. So when you come across a frame that has brood, you need to be more careful and hold it always above the hive, because the queen may be on this frame more likely than on any other frame that just has honey.
Right.
And you don't want to accidentally drop her in the grass.
Right. So don't make any sudden movements, don't jerk it around.
And you know, we don't really need to find the queen for what we are doing today.
But it's pretty obvious she's there.
Oh yeah, of course, if there are eggs and fresh brood there, the queen is there.
Right.
So we know this is the frame with brood number 1 that will be transferring. Okay, this will probably also be brood. Yeah, lots of brood.
Yes.
Beautiful. And lots of brood on this side too.
Yes. I just love the way they're so busy. That's where they get busy like a bee. I just love it. You can see all the brood capped and ready to go. Early April. This is a really good strong hive. We'll be able to split this one during the year for sure.
Yes, we will. All right, so number 2. All right, this one is brood 2. I'm not even taking it out. So this is brood. I'm just sliding it.
So it's just like your hand said. Everywhere that was really warm on that end.
Yeah, it was very warm here.
Brood.
Look how much brood.
Very heavy brood, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So 1, 2, 3.
Nice.
4. And
now sometimes the brood comes protruding out and sometimes it's in.
So the one that's sticking out, this is drone cells with the male drone larva in that. So it looks like bullets, so you know that they are raising males too, which is a sign of a healthy, strong colony. It takes a lot of resource to raise their male bees because they don't contribute to honey production. Their only purpose, well, there are many functions they serve, hormonal regulations, contributing to the heat, but their primary function is just mating. So bees can only invest in procreation when they know that all of their internal needs are already met.
Right.
So if you open it early in the spring, like April, early April, and you see they're already rearing drones.
Ooh, look out.
Then, yeah, they have the resources to do so, meaning enough food, enough bees. And it's another indication that they are raising all of these drones to fertilize the queen, so when these hatch and become sexually mature just 3 weeks from now, you're likely to see the first swarms.
Right.
And this also is, right on schedule. The last week of April would be the beginning of the swarming season.
Right.
Okay, 4 frames of brood. Now I realize I should have come a month earlier to do the transfer.
Didn't know they'd be off to such a good start. Actually, you're glad you didn't. We had a lot of cold weather. We had a lot of wind.
Yeah.
It was kind of up and down.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow.
So it's really going to town, huh?
Yeah, if we were not transferring this colony today, we could even split it right here, but because they will endure the stress of being transferred with the comb cut, we won't spread them too thin.
Right.
It's best to transfer them today, give them more frames. The queen is very prolific, there are lots of bees. We'll borrow some of the frames from the other hives that have lots of empty cells. The queen will lay more brood there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It will make more than 5 frames of brood in the laying frames. And this way, at the end of this month, by early May, late April, you will have so much brood there, so many bees, they will be ready to be split.
Up.
Yep.
And we'll be ready for them. Last time we weren't ready for them.
Yeah. 5 frames of brood, very good. So we're all ready. We know how many frames of this kind we need to do the transfer, and we can get down to it.
All right.
I'll temporarily close this up. Okay. So when you transfer bees from one hive to the other, it's best that they're in the same spot so that all the foragers returning to this entrance find the entrance to the new hive more easily.
Yeah, it's kind of a trick bag. You want to do this work while all the foragers are out foraging, but you're going to create a problem maybe where they come back and they're like, hold on, where'd you move to? So you have to keep it really close. And we talk about this in previous videos, that if you move bees, you actually have to close them up at night, move them 5 miles away, open them up for a while, close them back up, then bring them back to where you want to set them on your property. I was speaking with a guy this morning, and we were talking about catching swarms. And I was letting him know that if you catch it in that tree, you can't just take them somewhere and start beekeeping. You have to move them 5 miles or beekeep right under that tree. So he was like, whoa, yeah, that's good information.
All right, so let's just swing it out of the place so we can set up the new hive here.
Okay.
Like that?
Yes. Yep. Should we move that over?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right on.
Right on the money, honey.
When you use cinder blocks or stones for a hive stand, do not put your hive straight on the cinder blocks, because some moisture will be trapped between the concrete and the bottom of the hive, and the bottom will start rotting more quickly. So what I use any kind of lumber, just laying it across the cinder blocks, and then I put the hive on top of these boards.
And so because today is all full of surprises day, there's an unveiling that's going to happen with this too, and I haven't seen it at all.
No.
So I'm pretty fired up and excited to see it like you guys. And I'm going to call Stacy. Stacy! She's working over in the garden, so come on, come here. But wait, there's more. Okay, so Dr. Leo set you up with another beehive extravaganza here.
Oh my gosh.
Here we go.
Oh my gosh, it's so totally the coolest thing I've ever seen in my whole life.
That is awesome.
Gorgeous.
Thank you. My daughter painted this one.
Oh, I figured, yeah, she's very talented. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
And you know, this is a very popular design. When we painted it on our first hive, somebody liked it so much they just wanted to buy the front wall of the hive. They didn't want the hive, they just wanted the painting. So we removed it, and they hung it on their wall in their bedroom in Oklahoma. And then somebody else asked for design, and you know, a family with 5 children, just, you know, we're so busy we cannot keep making copies of the original all the time by hand. So eventually I said, okay, let's paint it on something that we can scan and just print. So this is again this printing on a piece of exterior grade aluminum with the colors that should stay vibrant for at least 10 years.
Man, I'm like, look at this. This is awesome. I love it. It is gorgeous.
Thank you. Tiffany B. Yeah, and we printed a lot, so if you are interested in getting this particular design for your insulated layers horizontal hive, check out horizontalhive.com, and we have them available there.
Oh, they're beautiful. Oh, I love it.
I'm glad you do.
The bees will love it too, and now they know where to come.
Exactly.
Home sweet home. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Give your daughter a big hug. It's beautiful.
I will. One more thing that we will do before we start, we'll go to the other hives and we'll grab some of these beautiful, nice empty comb, so we can add it right there at the same time as we transfer these bees from the horizontal Langstroth American Standard frame into the European Layens, L-A-Y-E-N-S beehive.
And that way, that'll give them a head start using the comb that's already made. They don't have to waste a lot of time building that, and that'll give them a good head start. So,
yep.
All right, let's go get it. There goes Dr. Leo. He's going to get those frames. Molly's watching him. I love that artwork. Thank you guys. When you're watching this at home, that was very kind. We appreciate it.
Thing I do, I take 3 of the frames and I will put them here. What will happen during the transfer, all of the bees that get agitated, even with the first frame that we shake down here, they will have new comb to go into and it will make them calmer. Next I will prepare a few frames to transfer length trough cut frames into the lens frames. I don't need wire for these starter frames because we'll be cutting, putting the length trough frame in here and attaching it with screws. So if you already have a frame that is wired, you have to remove the wires quickly and put the screws that will be holding everything together in place. The next step is to prepare the screws that you put into these frames to hold the frame that we will be nesting in the lens frame. And doing it ahead of time saves the time during the actual transfer. The quicker you can go when you insert the frames, the better. So I insert 2 into each top bar, using the same holes that were pre-drilled for the wire. This comb is not regular shape, so we're not giving it to the bees, and we'll remove the bottom of this one too.
A lot of preparation goes into this.
Yes, but the better prepared you are, the quicker it will go, and normally you are able to move bees from one box into the other into 15 or 20 minutes. Normally there is no point in looking for a queen in many of the operations in natural beekeeping, but because this transfer involves shaking all of the bees from one hive into the other, if we can find the queen and just gently put her in the new box, it will attract all the rest of the bees. So before I start shaking the bees off the comb and swiping them off and cutting the frames, nesting them in here and putting them into the new hive, I do want to give myself another chance of finding the queen. So I will go over the brood frames only one more time looking for the queen. If I find her, I will just gently put her into the new box. If I cannot find her, we'll proceed with the transfer without. Finding her is beneficial because it minimizes the risk of damaging her in the transfer, but even if you were to damage or lose the queen, because there are eggs and tiny larvae in this box, the bees will be able to raise themselves a new queen if they have to. But of course, much better not to lose her in the first place. So here we go. Any bees that I am seeing, I will already be putting into the new box. They have some honey here to attract them to the new box. They have empty comb there, and I can tell that now foragers are already starting to return from the field because there already feels like there are more bees here than an hour ago when we visited. That's the queen, I think. No. I thought I saw the queen, but no. Just a big bee. When you're taking out frames, spread them out more first. This way you're not rolling these one against the other. Three more frames of brood to go. There are drones already. Beautiful, lots and lots of bees. And if you remember, the story of this hive is that Doug received a southern Italian queen in the mail to requeen the hive that when it had no queen. And since then, I think it was 2 seasons ago, but now when you look at the bees, you see that some of them are yellow, but some of them are very, very dark, meaning that this queen produced progeny and then they were mating with local drones, getting some of the northern dark bee genetics into them. Alright, off we go with the transfer. I will be shaking bees off into that new hive, then cutting the comb with brood, embedding it into these frames, and then putting the frames into that hive too. I want to hear the bees, and normally I do want to wear hearing protection, but off we go. And they run straight into the combs there. With my hive tool, I'm tracing the cut line, and I'm picking it somewhere where there is less brood. Then I'm covering it with plywood if you like to follow the straight line, or you can just do it freehand. And I'm cutting through everything, including the wood, the comb. Save the cutoffs too, we'll embed them into frames too. Now I take frame, I put this brood into the frame. You need to cut off this slug, of course, for it to fit. And then one goes through the end bar into the end bar. Okay, that frame is ready. Transferred from a length trough into a lance. The same thing, measuring 12 inches and tracing the cut line. Saving the cut off to be embedded into another frame. Cutting off the lug. And I know that and I know Doug is probably cringing hearing his good blade going through the metal. There is a staple here, so sometimes you hit it even if you are paying attention. So if you have several blades, don't use your best blade for this transfer. Really don't necessarily need this one screw in the end, but I like to drive it to keep both frames in the same plane. Okay, this one is ready. Next. By the way, you can do this transfer if you are just getting bees as a nuke. That means a small hive with 5 frames that will arrive with this size of frame. And if you want to lodge them in the lance horizontal hives with good insulation in the walls and deeper frames, that are especially important in the north, then you can do what we are doing now. Wow, beautiful.
A lot of comb.
Yeah, all the comb, a brood on each. Yeah, just lots of bees, healthy, strong, beautiful.
They actually seem to have a better temperament than they had before. Remember before they were kind of riled up?
Yeah.
Now they seem to be a little more easygoing.
Well, they requiescence out for sure. On this very last frame of brood I had 3 cut-offs, so I just trimmed one and I fitted them like that. The orientation changed, but it is not going to upset the bees. There were experiments showing that if you rotate the comb, the bees can adjust to that. So I'm returning all the brood. All of the bees from the brood combs are in this box. The queen is almost certainly in this box because she's usually found on the brood combs. So we have 2 more operations to do. First, we need to finish transferring these bees from the honeycombs, shaking them off here and taking all of the frames in the hive out of the apiary. And then we will feed this hive because we took all honey away, and I will show you how this feeding is done without any sugar. So you shake bees all off. So you shake bees and swipe them off all the equipment. And you will need to remove everything from the apiary as soon as you can, so they are not attracted to the smell of the original hive. Any of the bees that stay inside the hive, we will shake them down and swipe them down so they can take wing and come to that new hive. All right. So two ways of getting bees off frames. You can shake them, or you can hit the frame sharply with the fist, and then swipe any bees that are still there. Alright, we're done with the frames. Now, before we start working with the walls of the hive, we need to get these trays out, because if they had any diatomaceous earth here and we have to put the hive on the side, the diatomaceous earth could get on the bees, which is not good. I'm looking carefully in the corners one more time to see whether the queen might be there, even giving some puffs of smoke so the bees start running. No, I'm not seeing the queen, so I can proceed with shaking them off and smoking them off, encouraging them to take flight and return to the original spot where the entrance was, finding that box. And you can already see how the bees start running there in the corner. So, before I close this hive, and I now have to close this hive, this is how I will feed them with the honey that we gave them. The bees really like the smell of anise. And I'm taking a spray bottle with just regular tap water. I'm putting 1 drop of anise essential oil to smell it. Then on the frames with honey that we transferred from a different hive, I scratch cappings of some of the cells with honey, and then I spray it with this anise scented water, and the bees start perceiving this honey as nectar, and the presence of nectar helps them recover from the transfer, because they know that, well, we've been disturbed, but at least we have some fresh nectar to consume. So I put it there. If you don't have frames that you can get from a different hive, use a frame feeder filled with honey or sugar syrup if you have no honey, and give it to the bees. When you do that, make sure there is no bee on the honey and comb that you put into your mouth. So what we have here is 3 new frames with empty comb that we gave this colony to produce more brood. Then all of our brood frames and 2 frames with honey borrowed from another hive. I put a divider board with the 2 legs to provide a gap into the empty compartment. Then I close the hive and then I shake all of the remaining bees out of the original box. It really helps if you can carry the hive certain distance and then put it on the side. You know, this is as much as you need to do. The bees are in the grass, they will take her flight and they will return to the original box. Well, they will return to the original space where the box was and they will find the new entrance. So you don't need to get every single bee out of the box. The fewer bees are left behind, the better. But if you were to carry them certain distance, they will join their sisters within the next couple hours before sunset for sure. So finally what I do, I just give it a big tap like this. And I get it out of the way. And we do need to remove this pile of comb as soon as possible so that the bees are attracted to the new entrance rather than going back to this comb, because this still has the original smell of the colony.
Man, you can just hear all the bees coming in. A lot of the foragers are coming back from their long day of going in and out. You guys have probably never even seen beekeeping like this, where you just take a hive and just open it up and destroy it just to move it into another hive. So.
But actually it's a very old practice, because people were facing the same issue of transferring from one kind of hive into other whenever different models of hives were available. In Keeping Bees in Horizontal Hives, the inventor of this hive model, George de Layens, describes how in his day many people were cutting out combs out of skeps, the basket hives, putting them into frames in a way similar that we did today, and they're putting it in a box like that. That has the advantage of being much easier to manage than probably any other hive model available today.
So if you guys have been following along, we've started off with the vertical hives. We showed you guys how to transfer them into the horizontal hive. Now we've taken the horizontal hive and moved it into the deeper frame hives. And we're walking you guys along every step of the way. That's pretty cool.
And you know, the irony of that is that the way Doug got his first horizontal hive that holds the standard American frames is that I was phasing them out of my apiary, and he felt he wanted to stay compatible with the prevailing American standard and use the frames that he already has. But what happened to him is the same experience that I had in my apiaries. After you run horizontal Langstroth hives with American frames for a number of years, and then try the lay-ins, it's almost like a point of no return, because you see there is so much more added convenience having all of these top bars that touch, deeper frame, a shape of a hive that is more consistent with how the bees live in the nature, that eventually I felt like converting everything to this kind of hive. This is the only style I now use in all of my bee yards, and I couldn't be happier with that.
And another thing is just like, I just don't want to be that guy that gets stuck in his ways, you know? I want to be the guy that is trying new things. Even the tried and true stuff can be improved upon. So when I was introduced to horizontal hives, it kind of made sense to me. So moving from the vertical to the horizontal hive was kind of a smooth transition. I wanted to see what was the difference. I knew the battles of lifting up those heavy hives and taking those supers back with me to the house. And I know with the dripping honey and the falling over of everything, there's just the hassle that was involved. And ever since we've been working with the horizontal hives, it's been a lot easier to deal with, you know, moving the frames and stuff. And so I've really enjoyed that. Now I'm just really interested in going on to this next phase and trying the most beautiful hives that you've ever seen.
Thank you.
So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I really like their buzzing, and they're really doing the dance in front of the hive right now. It's really cool. They're doing their signal dancing, and everybody's got their wings going real good. And that's another indication, I think, that the queen is inside. They're all gathered in the front. There's not anything really hanging out back here where we were. There's nothing really going on at the vertical hive over there, the horizontal hive, I'm sorry. So you could tell that the queen's inside there, and they're excited to go inside there and to be with her. So yeah, we're off to a good start with this hive.
Yeah, so what they're doing there with the fanning of the wings, they're spreading the smell of the hive and of the attractant pheromone to signal to the rest of their nest mates that are still outside that, hey, we have a new location, come over.
It's good stuff. I love it. All right, now we got one more thing to do, so don't you go anywhere. What a day in the bee yard. Special delivery.
All right.
He said, hey, Doug, walk up here and act like you're the UPS guy and give me this box. And I'm like, fling!
All right. What is it? I didn't order anything.
Yeah, boy, this day's full of surprises over here.
All right. So let's open and see.
All right. Now, one of the things you guys that you might hear us talking about quite often is not buying bees, right? Not bringing in these bees that are from California or all these other places that you aren't from. So what we're doing here is opening up this, what I'm looking at right now. I can tell what it is, but Dr. Leo is going to actually tell you what it is.
All right, so the box that attracts bees are as a swarm, so you get local bees at no cost. It's called a swarm trap.
Yes.
There are free plans on Horizontal Hive to build one, but now we're offering very affordable boxes that just start from $129, and they're super heavy duty, will last 20 to 30 years, and will pay for itself with the first swarm that you catch. So it has all the bells and whistles of what you want in a swarm trap, and there is also a $199 package that includes the swarm lure and all of the hardware for attaching it to the tree.
The ratchet strap,
yeah,
the lemongrass, the slow release. That's one of the tricks. I don't know if you guys, if you didn't catch those other videos. The slow release lemongrass stems that he uses, that's the trick, because if you put lemongrass in there, the smell will go away too fast, or it'll be too strong, and this is perfect. It just drips it in, puts it in there, yep, just like they like it.
Yeah. So swarm trap, it has a gate that you can open and close like that. Also, the top has metal that wraps around the top, so protects it from weather real well. It has hinges and ventilation in the top and hooks in the back, so it opens and closes. It has ventilation in the bottom and 2 slats that keep it off the ground so the bottom doesn't rot. The angles are protected with their steel, and all of the frames are included too. The foundation is also included there in the complete kit. So if you are not a woodworker or have no time or tools, what you can do, you can still start this very season by getting a box like that, putting it on the tree, and the bees do the rest.
Yeah. And that's a really, I'm looking at it, it's really well made, and it wasn't painted. They actually used the linseed oil, and that's another way you guys can treat the boxes that you build from his site, horizontalhive.com, open source free information, so you guys can do this yourself, but you guys can use this instead of using paint if you'd like. So, and you said we'll have to treat this probably every 2 years.
Yeah, renewing the linseed oil every 2 years helps protect it indefinitely.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
And this is a very well put together swarm trap. One thing you guys want to do if you guys are going to build your own is just make sure that, you know, everything's tight and put together good. You're going to be going up in a tree and retrieving this thing and bringing it back down, so you don't want any kind of flimsy. And what he was talking about with these rails on the bottom here was like, I can go up right now and set that on the tree stand up there. You know, before I put it on there, but I had to elevate it a little bit. Now it's all built in, so any moisture that lands on the tree stand won't suck onto the bottom and rot out the bottom. It's kind of nice. So it's pretty heavy duty. It's going to last you many uses, you know.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. And the money you can make, you know, if you're going to do this, like we were explaining earlier, we know folks that are making more money with cattle, making more money with bees than with cattle. And so this is an investment. You know, you're going to be using this year after year after year.
Yeah, and considering that you can get it for less than 200 years and it will serve it 20 years, it's like $10
Less than
per year.
$200.
What did I
He
say?
said 200 years.
Oh, sorry. Considering that it's less than $200 and
Yeah.
it will last 20 years, it's really an investment rather than an expense.
And the return that you get on it with the bees and the queens and all that stuff is just, and the honey, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have
and
to
you know,
start
the
somewhere.
author of Keeping Bees with a Smile, the essential resource that you need to read if you have not yet, is his experience was that for every $1 that he spent on the bees were giving back $10.
That's a good return on your money right
is.
there.
And you know, another thing that I enjoy tremendously about coming and sharing it all with Doug and you is that I know it's not just about you watching it or then reading the books. The essential books to read are Keeping Bees with a Smile, Keeping Bees in Horizontal Hives, and When You Are Ready to Multiply Your Own Bees, Raising Honeybee Queens. So it's not just about watching and reading. I know that so many of you are putting it into practice. I get a stream of emails saying, Dr. Lee, we saw you on Doug and Stacy, and we built a swarm trap from your plans, and now we have 20 colonies of bees. They're thriving. Thank you so much.
And that's not even, you know, these are great videos. You guys are learning a lot of information, but hands-on is where it's at. You know, Dr. Leo actually hosts learning classes at his apiary, and you can go to horizontalhive.com. I'm going to leave all those links for you, and that way you can check out the schedule. Last year I attended one of the classes, so a lot of folks came to that class to see me, and we hung out all together. Probably going to happen again in 2021. And then we're also talking about him coming up, and we're having a class here at the Learning Center. You guys didn't forget about that, did you?
Yeah.
You know, that's what that building was for, is a Learning Center. So you guys can actually come here and learn hands-on. And we're going to be in Hannibal, Missouri with Dr. Leo August, the first Sunday and Monday in August at the Homesteading Life Conference. So of course you guys can come there. That's a great time, great you know, resource, great learning. It's about 300-400 people. It's limited seating, lots of information, lots of workshops, lots of good stuff there. So
It is. I very much look forward to that.
Yeah.
So the 2-day workshop at my place, the next dates are May 29th and 30th, 2021. But I offer a few workshops every year.
Yeah.
And again, I look forward to presenting here at Doug's homestead And he also has active hives going, so we'll have hands-on experience here too.
Yeah, so make sure you guys hit the subscribe button on your way out. Hopefully you got some good information from this video, and make sure you hit all notifications so that way as we go through the summer this year and we're doing all these bee videos, you'll get all the notifications along with all the other homesteading videos that we do. And if you didn't know, we're building Mama log cabin on the back side of our property there. We're moving her out of the city and up here so she can get bee stings and chicken eggs right out of the coop, and you know, watch the food grow right in the raised beds. So man, I just love this lifestyle. It's just so good.
Well, and I'm glad that we made your hives even more beautiful than what they were.
Did you guys see those? Now, if you guys want to get your own beautiful hive prints, just go to horizontalhive.com, see what prints they have available. Also, if you have an idea, are you good with that? Do they send you ideas?
If
you
something
can make
is so good that it's irresistible, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But you don't have to go through me. Just make sure that you print it with outside rated printing, or the one that they do for signs. And,
right, like a vinyl, if you're going to use sticky stuff and not do like that fancy artwork like he did, hand painting it on there. But yeah, if you wanted to get a plate for your own hive once you build it, you can go to his website and they have those available for you too, so you can have the most beautiful hives. Yeah. That's it. So you guys, thanks for coming by the homestead. Hopefully you guys learned something from this video. We are totally going to go tear up some food right now. So we'll see you guys on the next video.
Thank you.
All right. Man, here we come. Time to eat.